legend.
Hey, man. Thanks for having me.
Let me tell you, I'm super thrilled about this. I've been wanting to do this for some time. It means a lot to us here at the Museum of Graffiti, and also to those who have followed you and learned from you and still are very much influenced by the legacy you started back in the early 70s. So thank you. Thank you so much. You have legends here. You have Deffer, a hand style legend. You have Part One, Cess, and many others joining us today.
I'm I'm just glad I could contribute.
And boy, did you. And so, so let's talk. Giz is here. Cope is here. Rivs. So there's a lot of people joining us today. So I'm really excited about this talk for a lot of reasons, right? Because one, uh, some of the innovation that you've created for the culture, we'll discuss some of that. But very personally, me and my cohorts over the years have always spoken very highly of you. And so without further ado, Jester, I am going to jump right in with you and turn the camera around and just set us up so that we can preview some of your work and talk about your career and your legacy and work. And generally, I like to start from the beginning, right? Because I think that gives us some context, because early graffiti, as we knew it, was just writing, wasn't it? It was just handwriting.
Yeah, it was just tags, bro. That's all we knew, and that's what we did. We just tagged. And it's a funny thing because if you notice, not that many people were tagging with spray paint. They just had these little markers, these little El Marcos or these little dry mark markers, and that's what we did.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And just to give you a heads up, one of the great legends, SJK, joins us as well. And this is the reason why I started out with this slide, Jester, because you're right. It was El Marcos and small markers before spray paint. And then we get to this period, which has always been very interesting to me, when they start using spray paint and the discovery of these other markers, uni wides, and this style, Broadway elegant. Um, that when you were young, when you were first starting out, tell us about this marker, the tools you had available.
Well, when I was first starting out, I remember that I used to use like El Marcos. It was like a skinny marker with a skinny tip, and it had a picture of what's his name? One of the
Zorro.
Zorro, right? And you know, I also remember using dry markers. They were little small markers. They came like in a glass. It's sort of like a glass, container, and that's what we use. But after a while, and don't quote me on the year because I'm not sure about the
Sure.
year. All of a sudden, pilots and Nijis came out, and that's what everybody gravitated to, so their name could be bigger.
So did the broader markers come in before the spray paint?
Um, I would say, like, I mean, spray paint was always there. It's just like if you were able to get it, you were able to get it. But the spray paint was definitely there before broader markers, before unis and minis and pilots and Nijis and Pentels. Paint was always there.
So, Jester, here we have a very early tag of yours where we really see the genesis of your hand style, and also Tracy 168 right next to you.
Yes.
And we were talking about the early days earlier, and um, let's go back, right? Because you had mentioned that when you started writing, that one of the first writers you wrote with was the legendary king, Cliff 159.
Indeed. Cliff 159. Me and Cliff grew up in the same projects. So that's Colonial Projects on 159th Street and 8th Avenue, which is now called Ralph Wrangle. And we, and you know, I knew Cliff. We knew each other since kindergarten. Like since we lived in the same neighborhood, we went to the same schools, and we were the same age, so we were always usually in the same classes. And once we got to the 6th grade, you know, me and Cliff, we were freaking smart as hell, man. I'm telling you, we were so smart that they say, yo, we got to put these guys in an SP class. But in Harlem, there was no SP classes, bro. There was no SP classes, so they had to ship us out to Dykeman, right? Well, actually, no, before Dykeman, it was Inwood. They shipped us out to Inwood because that's where the school was, and that's where the SP classes were. So that's where we were going, out of the neighborhood. But to get to Inwood, two Harlem dudes had to take the train. So we taking the train, and to get to Inwood, because like I said, we lived on 155th Street and 8th Avenue, and we had to take the D train to like 145th Street and switch to the A. So, you know, there were a lot of times when we would take the train, we would see these names, you know, on the stations. And Cliff was like, yo, I want to see my name on the station. I was like, okay, me too. I want to see my name too. So that's where it all came from. Having to take the train in the 7th grade out of the neighborhood exposed us to graffiti.
Right, because we're looking at this video, and there's a Dean piece and some of the old timers, and it was just local graffiti. It was just on the walls, pretty much. But the trains inspired something else, right? For Cliff, he was such a standout early on in his productions, right? In terms of style and getting up. You know,
Yeah, Cliff. Yeah, Cliff. I feel like he was one of the first to put characters, or even to put cartoon characters in his pieces. Because you know, even comic book characters. Because you know, Cliff is famous for the Hulk. He's famous for Beetle Bailey. He's famous for those type of pieces. And when he got with Tracy 168, it was over because these guys they killed the 4-line, and because they killed the 4-line is because they went to D-Wood Clinton High School, and that's the train that went closest to the school. I mean, and any graffiti writer will tell you, if you're going to school, you want to see your name while you're going to school. It's just a no-brainer. So this is what that was.
Right. And Jester, on that note, which is interesting, right? Because it's about kind of the ego-driven. Because for some writers, it was an escape. It was just getting up, right?
Yeah, I mean, I've heard different things from different writers. Some writers was like, "Oh, I'm political," or I just wanna see my name, or it's like I'm rebelling against my parents, or it was a different thing for everyone. Every writer had their own reason for writing on the trains. My reason was I wanted to see my name, and I wanted to see it a lot. Simple as that.
Another writer you wrote with that wanted to see his name up a lot. Again, one of the all-time kings and legends in
Oh,
I
Jamal.
Am.
Jamal was something else. You know, it's funny. Jamal went to D-Wood Clinton too. So he was from that school. That school had so many writers, man. And this guy, he was amazing. It was amazing. I mean, by the time I linked up with him, he was already the king of the 2s and the 5s. I know a lot of people talk about him like, oh man, he just did a 2-letter name. So, you know, he really didn't, but no, he killed. He killed in a short period of time that he was writing. He did his thing.
You mentioned you were witness to his painting with 2 hands at the same time.
Yes. I did a lot. I wrote a lot within. I was one of the guys who was able to be blessed to go writing within. And one of the things that we did, we hit the pull in and pull outs. And I mean, he introduced me to that because I never even thought about that when I was writing. I never even thought that I could go and, well, you know, I knew I couldn't do it with a name like Jester. So once I started writing DYE, I was like, okay, I can hit the pull and the pull outs with N. But the funny thing about it was that N was so fast. N pieced with both hands. You know, I've literally seen him fill in, do the outline, fill it in with one hand, and then trim it with the other. That's how good he was. And he was fast. And a lot of times when we were in the pull and pull outs, the train would pull in and it leaves really quickly. And the only way, a lot of my pieces, like I was writing DYE at first, a lot of those pieces would leave the pull and pull out, and I didn't even get to trim my E. So this is where die came from. Keeping up with M and also making sure that my pieces got done from the pull in and pull outs. And we hit all the pull and pull outs. We hit 205th, we hit 175th, we hit Broad Street, we hit Brooklyn Bridge, every pull in and pull, every 179th Street, any pull and pull out you can think of, we hit it.
And here's what gets me, and I'm so glad you had mentioned this, because you with DY, you innovated the throw up. And I know guys were doing the softies before you, but you innovated this D and this Y that to this day is still very much used.
Yeah, man. You know, I didn't know what I was doing. You know, I just, you know, because when we started doing the throw ups, which was like, you know, 74, 75, I just was trying to get up. I just was trying to see my name. And, you know, I had done a lot of gestures before that. And let me give props to Blade and Comet, because Blade and Comet were the ones who spurred me on. They were the ones where I would see their name on all them IRTs, and I'm like, yo, I got to get up like them. And I tried to get up like with the name Jester, and you know that's what that was. But when I'm gonna tell you, like, the first line that me and Cliff ever hit was the 4 line. I remember we used to go to the layups on 170th Street, 167th Street, and because they used to lay the trains up there, and we jumped down on the tracks, and we would do our pieces on that line, and that was the first line we hit. And you know, guys like Checker was up, you know, Checker and Fuzz, these guys were up, man, and we wanted to get up too, and so that's what that was. But
And Jester, you know what? I zoomed in on this picture because something interesting is happening in this picture that is kind of just generationally separated, because we have the DY throw up on the corner, right? Which predates the DE, which is probably demo,
right,
right next to it.
right, yes,
So
it
when you
does.
so when you saw that people were adopting this style, this lettering style, um, were you about like, stop biting my style, or great,
No,
I'm contributing?
no, I never thought like that, because let me tell you, I bit my style from writers. So I know all writers take something from someone else. Because what I did when I came out with my Jester tag, it was a bite from all the Broadway writers that came before me. Because like I said, I went to middle school in Inwood, and then I went to Dykeman. But the thing is, those guys who were writing before me, for instance, the J in my name came from Junior 161. The E in my name came from Jockey 1. The S in my name came from Slick 1. And the R came from a dude named Royal 613. These guys were already writing. These guys were already killing. And I just was able to take my style from each one of these writers, and that's what it was. So anybody tell you that they don't bite, they lying. I mean, everybody bites. Everybody got something from
Right,
someone
right,
else, and because what really spurred me on was that one day I was going to school, and these guys came on the train. I was by myself on the train going to school, and these writers came on the train, and they killed this train. I was like, oh shit, what are they doing? And I'm gonna tell you, I will never forget it, and I remember it to this day. It was Junior 161. It was K 161. It was Torok 161. It was Frank 207, and they just destroyed this car, and then they just moved on to the next car, and I'm just left there dumbfounded because I wasn't the only one in that car. There were other people in the car. They didn't give a fuck. They just came in, wrote their name, and just boom, moved to the next car. I said, "Yo, I'm gonna do that," and that's what really spurred me on and made me want to be a bomber. There's writers who they do style. That wasn't me, man. I wanted to bomb. That's all I wanted
right.
to do.
And speaking of style masters, you were close friends with Peso.
Yeah,
From TDS.
yes, Peso went to JFK with me. So yeah, that's another story. So like I said, I was linked with Cliff for a long time, and then when it came to high school, Cliff went to D with Clinton, and I went to John F. Kennedy, and that's where I met Peso. I met Cool 131, and there was another guy there who wrote Anthony, and that's where I met those guys at, and me and Peso instantly clicked.
Yeah, and you know what? And I was super happy that you mentioned Anthony. He was a Broadway writer,
Yes.
and I was always wondered who he was because he would do these gigantic pieces, and I
Uh,
heard he was a little guy. I thought he was.
Yeah, little
I,
guy, man. Yeah, it was funny. Um, yeah, we JFK was unique because it had 8 floors, and on each floor was a lunchroom, and each period had a different, it had a different lunchroom period. So we would spend all our days in the lunchrooms for different periods. And Anthony would be sketching me and Peso. I would ask Peso, and like I said, I'm not ashamed to say, I asked Peso for styles. You know, he didn't do my pieces for me. He gave me a style, and I would go on a train and do it myself. And Anthony and Cool, yeah, same thing, man. We hang out, we sketch in the lunchroom, and it was fun times, man. Really fun.
Jester, can I ask you about something about TDS or even that moment that your generation of hand style writers, of the penmanship was outstanding and still is such a high bar for hand style writing and parts here, and he's that generation too. What was that? Was that a kind of because you spread yourself around. You went to Brooklyn, to Queens, you got around, and so you got to see a lot of style. But that Bronx style was particularly funky, or that Uptown style. Um, what was it? What was it about that handwriting style at that period?
Um, what I think is that mostly everyone had their own style. Okay, everyone they were doing their own thing. But I remember when Top Cat 126 came to Broadway, and I heard he was from Philly, and he just he just he made the styles go. He made everyone up their game. But even before that, um, in Brooklyn, the Ex Vandals, they had style. It was a unique style. They had style. Everybody, not everybody, but a lot of writers from Brooklyn was they had a different style, and I think Manhattan had its own style, and the Bronx had its own style. Everyone had their own, was doing their own thing, but like I said, my style came from Broadway.
And moving on and talking about style, I want to talk about another friend of yours and writer who was such a great innovator, a king You mentioned to me something very important. It was a very important link in the story of style writing, and that's Dean BYB. And I mean, one of the all-time greats, easily. And tell me
Yeah,
about
Dean,
meeting
man.
Dean and writing with Dean.
Yeah, Dean was the man. Dean, he got up. He was part of MG Boys also, so he had links to the Bronx, and we met. We probably, because I can't remember, but we probably met at a writer's corner. We probably met at some station, and we just clicked from that moment on. And I know he was doing his thing, and he was also the vice president of TC, but he also was the only dude from uptown that was willing to travel with me when I wanted to go to Brooklyn or I wanted to go to Queens or wherever I wanted to go. He would go, and Dean he was just like me, man. He could rap because, like, I ain't gonna front. If you can't get paint, you're not gonna get up. And Gene was a tall, light-skinned dude with an afro. Me too. I was tall with an afro. We racked up. It was so easy. Nobody never freaking. None of these store owners never really bothered us. If you get paint, you're gonna get up. Simple as that.
Right. And just to pause there for a second about TC, the crew. It was a crew that a lot of us wish we were a part of, but we knew, and it was elite crew and a very exclusive crew because of the people that were in it. Of course, you mentioned Dean. There was Peso, Mouse, Corrado 135 from Harlem, Dr. J, and many others.
Yeah.
Uh, um, what inspired the crew?
Yo, that's a funny story because um, at the time I had this girl, right? She was like, "Yo, I never see you because you always with your crew," and I'm like, that would be a good name for that would be a good name for a writing group. So that's what it was. It became the crew.
That's brilliant. And so I'm glad you shared that with us. I I want to move on to Dean again and innovation, right? And the
Yeah,
K.
yeah,
So we see the KOK and a more contemporary 2011 version of it by Ket.
right.
This K was profoundly influential on the whole culture.
It
Uh,
was. It was.
tell me a little bit about this when he came out with this K.
Okay, so like I said, we didn't know what we were doing. We were just at the beginning of the throw up game. So we did our letters. Now, as you can see with that K right there, he perfected it. As the more he did it, the better it got. And that's the same with everything. The more I did my D, the better it got. The more I did my Y, the better it got. The more he did that K, he influenced so many writers. And like, for instance, like KB, um, KR, I mean KS. I mean, so many writers were influenced by that K. It's just ridiculous. I mean, but he's the first one with it, and they did it. And it's not just that he influenced people; they they did that K the same way he did it. You know what I'm saying? It's not like they just did a K. They tried to do it the same way he was doing it, but no one ever could do it the way he did. I think KB came the closest.
Yeah,
But
I would agree with you. And I used to see he used to have tags and throw ups in my building on 100th Street because he used to visit Jinx. They were good friends, and that whole BYB crew had bombed my building, and he had throw ups, and I would
yeah,
copy his letter K. But I want to continue with his innovation, right? Because another thing he did, which was really unique, he had great hand style, especially his
oh,
tag. And
okay.
here,
Let's talk about that hairstyle.
yes, please.
Yes. Let's talk about that D. That was his D. I
Yes.
mean, there's always been
Here.
controversy that yes, there's always been controversy that he didn't start that D. But yeah, I think he did, because people, you know what I don't understand, and this has been an argument for a while, that Dean didn't start writing that D until he moved to Queens and he got it from Don One. No, sorry. No. He did not get that D. He did not get that D from Don One. No. Because he was doing that uptown before he even moved to Queens, before he even knew who Don One was. And I don't care. You could dispute me on it, but he was doing that D. And even when I used to, and I know this because when I used to tag Die 167, DYE, I used to use that D too. You know? And I know
Right.
where I got it from. I got it from D.
Right.
Simple.
It's really unique. And unfortunately, it's kind of blurring out on my screen. But man, this it was so wildly influential.
It was.
Um,
It was. So many people use that D. It's just
I,
like,
I mean, today it's part of Daze's main signature. I mean, it's just.
I mean, somebody had to be first, right? It
Oh,
was Dean.
absolutely.
It was Dean. Yeah.
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 We have right now what we're looking at is some tags in a train tunnel.
Yeah, that's
You know,
actually the A yard, Pitkin Avenue.
that's Pitkin.
That's Pitkin.
Yeah.
That's Pitkin. That's the A yard in Brooklyn.
So you got around. One of the things that you had mentioned was your time in Brooklyn with writers like Mickey and Hearst, the Odd Partners.
Yep.
And
Yeah, Mickey
going.
729, aka sorry, Mickey, aka 2729. He personally put me in top. He put in top, and what we destroyed it. I mean, there was a lot of times where I went writing with Mickey and Hearst and IO. I mean, like, they showed me a lot of rack up spots in Brooklyn. And then once because I was not afraid to go to Brooklyn. I don't care. I would go to Atlantic Avenue and meet all the Brooklyn writers and hang with them. No problem. I mean, I remember, and I'm the only uptown nigga from, coming to Brooklyn. And they'd be like, yo, Jester, what's up? Let's go. I remember coming to Atlantic Avenue, and I remember meeting Spin. And Spin, I remember the day that I met him, he said, yo, Jester, you want to go writing? I was like, yeah, sure, let's go. He was like, okay, first we went and we racked up some paint. He showed me some stores in Brooklyn. We racked up some paint. And then he said, okay, yeah, now we're going to go to this layup right now. Because, you would meet in the mornings. So you would meet like rush hour, right? But then after rush hour, they laid the trains up. At that time, they laid the trains up in the tunnels. So we would go rack paint. By the time we rack paint, rush hour's over. And he was like, yo, come on, I'm going to show you this layup. So I went with this nigga, right? And this nigga takes me on the A line. We go to Nostrand Avenue on the A line. And he's like, yo, come on, let's go. We got to go through the tunnel and we got to go through the exit. And the layup is downstairs. I said, all right, man, okay, no problem. Cool. All right. So we go through the tunnel. We get to the exit. And I'm seeing mad fucking tags. I'm like, what the fuck? All these fucking tags. I was like, yo, dude, how many people you took to this layup? He was like, yeah. You may want to take a tag while you're here. You may want to hit this. I was like, yeah, okay, all right. So we go in there and we going downstairs. I said, yo, where the fucking layup at? Where's the trains at? He said, yeah, just keep going down. Just keep it going down. No fucking layup. No train. He just wanted me to hit the fucking. That was his, like, you know what? That was like his black book, Like, yo, hit your name in here. That's what it is. I was like, yo, man, why you do that? How you do that? And he's like, yo, man, I just needed you to hit this. So then but he made up for it because right after that, we went to Utica. I'm sorry, not Utica. We went to Kingston because at that time, that's where them layups was in the morning. Between the rush hours, they laid them shits up. Kingston, Nostrand, and then before you get to Utica, it was a long-ass layup. And what made it so sweet, it had a platform. So the trains were laid up right on the, right next to a platform. It was sweet.
Oh yeah, you could do top to bottoms.
Hell
You
yeah.
know, among you taught me something today in our conversation earlier about the Brooklyn writers about Superstrut, and you
Yeah,
mentioned that he was the first all city king.
I believe it. I believe that's to be true. Yep. I mean, I've gone to Kingston with Super Strat too. You know, Super Strat, A Train, Spin. We all. If you'll notice, there are some. Well, you might not notice, but there are some pics online where you see these guys' pieces, and you see my name, you know, next to their pieces up. So we were walking the platform, and you'll see my tag in the same color as them, because you know, actually at that time I don't think I was doing that many pieces. I was like tagging. So yeah, you know, I was that was like, it was the beginning of the real beginning of the piecing era.
Right.
But
But you had
you know, I
various
wasn't
names,
there
right?
yet. Huh?
You had various names.
Oh yeah, I had, you know, in the beginning, it's like everybody. I don't know. No, I'm not gonna say like everybody, but you know, you try out names, you see what fits. Like I started with Jester, then I had Sony 2, then I had FE 163, then I had Tint 2, and you know, whatever fit. I think I had a name like, and then I had another name like Wit 170. You know, those names didn't fit. None of those fit. But I kept a theme. I kept dye and I kept tint, because those were related to colors. Those were related to painting something. And that's why I kept those names. Yep, dye and tint.
So Jester, here we have a good example of your tag. And one of the things when I talk about hand style writers and the dynamic of hand style writing and the flow, um, and the magic, you know, there are two hand style masters, hands down to me, of all time, and that would be Stay High and yourself in terms of the influence. This with the, you know, your jumping J and you know, your sharp E's, and of course the R kicking up. Um, this became like kind of like for all of us, you know, we would we would hunt for this tag just to look at. It's one of those tags you just wanted to look at because it was so good. Um,
Thank
and
you.
you and you,
Thanks
and you,
everyone.
yeah, and you mentioned, you know, some of the writers like Jack Jack Starr and the others who influenced you. And it's
Yeah.
interesting because I, you know, here's another wonderful, even though this is blurry, I did this when we got off the phone. I said, you know what, like, I've always tried to emulate, you know what, in Hawaii, I tried to tag you up and it just came out so sloppy, but the essence, the idea was there, but it was this tag style. But when
Yeah.
you look at it, one of the things I did after I got off the phone with you, I said, let me draw this and see if it captures it.
Not
And
bad.
and I was like,
Not bad.
no, but
Not bad.
I mean, yes, of course you could trace it, but there was
Yeah.
something magical and special about
Yeah, yeah. So
this.
what I feel about my tag is that I worked on it for, you know, for years, and I always tried to have it. I always had wanted a bounce. I think everything about graffiti should be a bounce or a flow. So that tag, it was a flow. You see how that flow is? You see how the J is connected to the E, and then the E and the S and the T is connected to the E,
Yes,
and the J and the R is like the same thing. It's like bookends.
yes.
The J and the R is like a bookend. And it's just like I always wanted to have a flow, a bounce. And this is not something that someone taught me. It's just something that I wanted to do. And like the E's, they had to have a bounce. And that was it, a flow.
I mean, here we see it inside the layup, but and again, there's something about the continuity, the muscle
Yes.
memory, right?
Yes, exactly, exactly. I gotta agree with you. It's like it goes together. It's like none of those letters shouldn't be there. Although they're all in place, they all belong together. It's just like a flow. You see, it's a flow. You know, sometimes they connect. The J and the E will always connect, and the T and the E should connect. But sometimes they don't. Sometimes they don't, and I'm okay with
But
that.
But you also had a wildly popular
Oh,
and
oh
really dope
yes,
lowercase
yes.
tag.
Oh yeah, that
And
tag right there. Yeah. Oh, what can I say? I mean, I love that tag. I mean, I feel like I didn't do it enough,
that,
but let me
well,
tell you,
right.
that tag right there, that killed Brooklyn. Brooklyn loved that tag, man. The writers in Brooklyn, they just went with it. Like, all right, like Cess, and that's my man. And Cess was a monster. He had a great tag. He had a great flow. Subway Slashes was so dope, but he took it from that Jester tag, that tag right there. And I didn't really even do that tag that much, you know, not that much. But
Right. What's interesting about the tag, this picture particularly, the innovation of that J, right? It's almost like an S, but it's really a
yes,
J that's kicking back. But
yeah,
more importantly, the R that extends out at the top, that
yes,
rolls out.
yes.
Um, where did that come from? What was that? Was that a common thing?
It went with the flow because when I would tag that name and when I would do the E and then I would come back and do the R, it just had to go. It just had to keep going. Just had to keep
And
going.
interestingly
It just
enough,
a flow. And you know what? You know what? So many people have told me that they thought I wrote Nestor because with the other tag, the other tag, they thought that was an N. So when I came out with this tag, yeah, they thought that was an N. Like so many people have told me, "Yo, you write Nestor." Nah, man. How could you see? How could you think that's an N? N's don't go that way. N's go the other direction. So why would that be an N? But
right?
with this tag, you can see the difference between the J, even though it looks like an S, even though the J looks like an S, you can see what the S looks like because it's in the
Yes.
name. So that you can see the difference. And I'm
And yeah,
go
and,
ahead.
and what I want to point out to you in this photograph, you have Zephyr One under you,
Yes.
who was wildly influenced by you. He
Yes,
he swears by
yeah,
you.
he said it many times that he took his style after my gesture tag. Yeah,
So
he have said that.
I want to switch gears to throw ups, right? And and
Okay.
and piecing, because you were already doing pieces. This Jester piece, I, I don't know what year this may be, but we see something very interesting in this Jester piece, a 3D on a throw up.
Yeah. I mean, like I said, that was done on the IRTs, the twos and the fives. And let's face it, back in the early 70s, or I'm not gonna say early 70s, I'm gonna say the middle 70s, like 75, 76, 77, 78. That was the line you had to hit to get noticed. If you didn't hit that line, you was a toy, man. Let's face it. If you didn't hit that line, you couldn't go to 149th Street at Grand Concourse because you would be a toy. So I had to hit that line. And me being from Harlem, I had to go in the Bronx to hit those trains. And yeah, it wasn't easy, man. I got a lot of my 4 trains and my 5 train. Well, I got a lot of my IRTs. There's specific spots that I would go to. The 4 yard, I loved it. I loved it. It was not far from my house. I could go there. I could catch fours, and because the fours switch with the fives and the twos. No, at that time the fours just switched with the five. They didn't really. Well, maybe they
Four,
did.
five, and six sometimes.
No, the sixes don't switch with nothing. The Sixers never switch with anything. Not very
No.
rarely would the six switch with something. That's why you seen all those scenes on the six, and you didn't really see a lot of scenes on the fours and 2 4s and 5s because they didn't really switch with them. But the twos and the fives definitely switch, and once in a while the fours would switch. But for me to get up on the fours, I had to go to I got them in the 4 yard. When I hit the twos and the fives, I would go to Baychester. I would go to New Lots, and that's where I hit my twos and fives. And I would go
Wow.
to
Just pause there for a second, because
yeah,
just to give people context, what he's saying, he would go to Baychester layup, which is all the way North Bronx,
yeah,
and then all the way to New Lots, the other end of Brooklyn.
Yeah,
Just to
because
give you an idea of that journey, that's a long ass journey. I used to do that myself, so I know
yeah,
how long that is.
but yeah, it is, but the thing is, people from what I learned about graffiti is if you lived in the Bronx, that's where you hit, that's where you stay. If you lived in Brooklyn, that's where you hit, that's where you stay. If you lived in Manhattan, that's where you hit, that's where you stay. But that wasn't like that. I wanted to go anywhere I wanted to go, and I could do that because I got along with everybody. I never had any beef in graffiti. Never. I never had no beef. So I could
But
go
you had
wherever I wanted to
races.
go.
You had races though. You had mentioned that you had races
Yeah, I raced
with
people to see who
riders.
was the king of the line. You know, I raced them to see who was the king. But mostly I didn't have any beef with anybody. So I could go anywhere. And I could go to any writer's corner because that's why I used to go to Atlantic Avenue. I would go to 71st Continental. I would go to my favorite writer's corner actually was 168th Street and Broadway because we did everything at that site. Yeah, it was great. You could ask Peso about that if you ever do an artist talk with Peso. He'll tell you about 168 and Broadway. You
Yeah,
know,
that would be amazing. And so Jester, we're looking at a Jesteroo uh,
yeah, that's a
piece with a throw up and dots in it,
right. That's a
and
piece I did on the 4 yard with Fuzz. Like,
with fuzz.
yeah, there's a Fuzzola. I mean, you know what? I have never seen since I did it. I've never seen the Fuzzola. There's a Fuzzola right next to that, and even Fuzz. I didn't even see a picture of Fuzz. He talks about this piece, but I never see the Fuzzola.
So,
We did an Ivory 2 and a Jesteroo too. We did an Ivory 2 and a Jester. Like
well, what
me and
that
Fuzz
brings
did
me
a
up.
lot of pieces together. We did. He was
Really,
cool.
I didn't know that, and I was a big fan of his too. But it brings me to something interesting, right? About uh, you grew up seeing graffiti mature, and you helped contribute to style and pieces, and here I'm going to go back, but I found this piece, right? Because we start looking at what were once called masterpieces, right?
Yes.
These old school pieces were not throw ups, so to speak. They were masterpieces.
Right.
And my thought was, well, did Jester explore masterpieces? And and actually, I do have a picture. This picture, which shows a stylized piece, a bubble style. Can you tell me about that? About going from
That piece right there was influenced by Phase 2. Phase 2 was also a big inspiration to me because he if anybody who knows anything about art, you see those E's, that's Phase 2 E's. And he did a lot of pieces. He was just an innovator at that time in the early 70s when it came to pieces. I'll give when it comes to him and Riff 170, they were a big influence on a generation of writers. But I would say Phase 2, yeah, he inspired me to do that piece. Yes, yes, indeed. And I wish I could give you like all the pictures. I wish you could see that picture of the Ivory 2 and the Jester, because little Fuzz, he was an influence also. He had mad style for a little dude, man. I'm gonna let you know, Fuzz. He was inspirational also.
I would agree with you because he was definitely an influence on me and my crew. But he was a young kid who came in the game at the very early on and learned from some of the best of them
Yeah,
and
man.
painted with the best of them.
and and,
Uh,
and, and, and Fuzz, I mean, me and him are still cool to this very day, you know, and I want to do something with him again. Like, if I can, I would love to do something with Fuzz. We talked about it too. We've talked about it because I'm still in touch with Fuzz. Most of these writers, it's a funny thing. Most of these legends, yeah, I'm still in touch with them. You know, comment, you know, still talk to them. We gonna do
no,
something.
that I'm glad you bring this up because I had mentioned to you that you know, you became kind of enigmatic, and we didn't know where you went, and you're this icon that everybody always mentions and talks. And then I ran into you at Guernsey's auction years after, and of course a lot of the legends were there, and we were all hyped that you were there, um, and that you know, this brings me back to where we are today, like that the old timers are like you, and all the legends are resurfacing, and yearly there's the old timers day. You're again, you know, painting your name again. You go for, like, a good example is this Jester throw up. It's cold. I remember this. And then you reproduce it. And and so now that you know, given the time away from graffiti and then coming back to this phenomena, what's it like for you that all of a sudden you realize how celebrated you are?
Well, for me, um, and it's really funny because I've never considered myself like a artist, a graffiti artist. I've always considered myself a bomber, and for me to step away from graffiti all the years I did, it was easy because to me it was just a thing that I did. You know, it wasn't my life. And I'm not knocking anybody who I'm not knocking any artist because I wish I could be like Quick, and I wish I could be like Blade. I wish I could be like Park. These guys, they you know, they incorporated art, graffiti into their life, and for me, it was just like, oh, I'm just gonna bomb, and that's it. I never really took it serious. I've never taken it serious, and I see now that maybe I should have. You know, you know what it feels like. It feels like for me, in graffiti, it feels like sports. In sports, in the early, sports. There's like in basketball, there's some guys who, or even baseball, there's some guys who made a little bit of money, you know, in the 90s or in the early 2000s. But now guys are getting paid millions. You know, the same thing that guys did back, sports guys did back in the 80s and the 90s and in the early 2000s. Sport players now are getting paid millions for that. So
Yeah.
that's how I feel sometimes. Like, damn, I came along too soon because I'm not getting the pay that, you know, writers are getting now. But I ain't mad. I did my thing. I never
But
really was out to do it for the money. I just was out to do it because I want to see my name, and that was it. So it just feels
so
that way.
here's, if I could interject and say to you, so here's the bigger trade-off on that. You know, you can make millions fine, can create the legacy that you've created, the impact. Impossible. It's been done. You are now and forever in the canon, right? You have a special place in history, that money cannot buy you. But that said, it doesn't mean that you shouldn't get paid for all the new work that you're doing, because we are using, you know, of course, graffiti art to, you know, uplift community, for activism, for all kinds of things, and education even. We have, you know, writers like Chino, who did the ABC style book of style, and of course, you know, when you look at those bubble letters, when you look at all that stuff, the influence and the impact you've had on people's lives over the years. And this is a great to mention, because I'm going to have a talk with Min, who's pictured here. We're going to have a talk on Thursday.
Yes.
He's
Can't
always
wait for
spoke,
that one.
yeah, he's spoken so highly of you. And of course, in many ways, he modeled himself after the greats like yourself and in. Um, so there's a generation of legends, of kings that really just look up to you. Here we have you with Slave. Again, another great style master that's resurfaced, who you've known for a very long time.
Yes. I mean, it's great to be out there, painting on the walls and chilling with the guys and seeing everybody that you haven't seen in years, and it's great to do that. And hell, look at Mayor. That was at the last Old Timers. Well, that was at 2019 Old Timers Day. It was great there, and I don't know what you're gonna do with that bat, but yeah,
I
we
don't
had a
know whose
great
bat
time
that
that day.
was, but
Yeah,
I'll share this with you, right? Because writers who are contemporary and old writers who live in the kind of, let's just say, art market space, or art world space, don't really attend these very unique and very special old timers days, right? Where you guys get together. Of course, it's mostly guys, but it's a lot of trading of stories. It's a lot of like, oh shit, you're still alive, or oh my god, I thought, can you sign this?
right.
I guys are grown. It's like grown men fanning out over each other. Is that
Yeah.
unusual to you?
No, it's not unusual to me. I feel like people should, get together and they should um, hang out if when they can, because life is short and tomorrow's not promised, and you never know. But with those graffiti things, it's like a lot of dudes don't show up for a number of reasons. Some of them still got beef. Believe it or not, freaking 30 years later, you still got beef. You don't want to come around, because you might get fucking smashed in your face. And it's crazy to me because I never had beef, but some guys still think like that. And other people don't come around. I don't know why. There's a lot of writers who just don't come to Old Timers Day. I don't know why. I don't know the reason why.
Well,
But I know some of it.
the fact that it still happens is a little bit of a miracle, isn't it?
I mean, let's give props to, the brothers who put it together. Checker 170, give him his props, man, because he doesn't have a problem with getting all of us together and doing, reminiscing about the things that we did in the past. And I feel like it's a great thing, man. I really do. That's why whenever they do the old timers, I try to get there,
Yeah.
because I mean, I believe in it. I do believe in it, and we got to keep the history alive, because sooner or later we're gonna be gone. We're all gonna be gone, and we have to be out there now, telling our stories, documenting what's going on, documenting where it started from, and just put it out there in the open, because there's a lot of stories going around. There's a lot of things being said about graffiti that's not true. And it's not that these people are purposely lying, or well, maybe they are. But I think a lot is because these people who are talking about graffiti, they're saying what they want to say because they feel like there's nobody there to dispute it. But hey, guess what? I'm there. There's guys like me is there. I'm there. Mike 171 is there. FDT 56 is there. SJK 171 is there. We know what happened. We
Yeah, I mean,
know.
look, if I can, I mean, look at the images on the screen. You have Blade, LSD. I mean, and Slave. I mean, to me, again, you guys are still around, and you're so invaluable to the culture. And of course, given that we just went through COVID, I think for me personally, these talks became more urgent, because one, of the age of my elders, and also because I remember a lot from the 70s, and that these were my heroes,
Yes.
and continue to be, despite the distance. And
Yes.
so one of the things that's quite beautiful is that the culture is remembering. And when you look at this piece here, the timeline of hand styles, my
Yes.
goodness, you're amongst everybody. And it's
And
just
and
crazy because, I
and,
mean,
and
look.
that's and you know what? That's a great picture, because I don't know if you noted or not. There's a theme on that wall, because what 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 Lady K did is that she wanted it from left to right. She wanted it from the beginning of graffiti. So if you notice, like all of graffiti,
Yeah.
like where that wall starts, it starts from the 70s. And as you go down that wall, it goes on to the 80s, the 90s, the 2000s. So
Correct.
all the guys that's in the picture with me, we're 70s guys.
Right.
And that's how she did it. That was her theme. And
Super cool.
yeah,
So
yeah.
Jester,
Yes,
you
sir.
know, you're embedded in our history. Now you're being embedded into books and documentaries. Um, you know, it's who would have thought late in life. I'll say this. I'm going to turn this over. I'll say this because I remember when I first met you at Guernsey's, and I know you don't remember that whole interaction with everybody then, but you were kind of quite surprised that somebody would fan out on you.
Yeah, because I never considered. I never
Okay, there you
realized.
go. You're
Okay, I
back.
never realized that I had such an
Wait,
impact.
you're back.
I didn't.
I
I just thought it
right.
was
I
just.
lost
I just was writing.
I lost you there for a
Are you
second.
there?
Yeah, we got disconnected. Can you hear me?
Okay. Yeah, I can hear you.
Yeah.
So yeah.
So
So what it was
about.
that.
Go ahead.
Go ahead. No. So what I never realized what it that I had an impact on graffiti. I didn't. I just did it for my own pleasure. I didn't care. You know what people thought about it, or I didn't. I just didn't know. I just didn't realize it until um I came back. I came back in like 2013. So I was gone from 79 to 2013. But when you say that I was at Gurney's, yo, I don't freaking
Guernseys.
remember that at all. What?
So that let me just refresh your memory because that was a big auction down at the Puck Building in Soho, and they was selling off all the graffiti, artifacts and stuff. And you were there with your wife, I think it was, and
Yo,
somebody. So I was outside. Listen to this. I was outside with Is the Wiz, Part, Kel, uh, just a who's who of people, and then somebody's book came up and said, oh, Jester tag. And I was like, hell no, this is
yo,
not possible.
yo, Part. Do you remember this show? Please tell me. Part, speak it up.
Yes, he was there. And I ran back in and got you and was like, yo, you have all these kings, all these guys outside, like they want to talk to you. And then you kindly came out and everybody was kind of bugging out that you were there. And I thought I thought that said a lot to me about when legends, like bona fide legends, like are like, oh shit, Jester, bow down. Like, oh shit,
Yo,
like this
yo,
is
yo, let me tell you, Mayor, I must have been fucking stoned out of my mind because I
no.
definitely don't remember that. I'm telling you, I don't remember that at
Listen,
all. And you said that was in the
so
90s?
let's just say it's a senior moment.
God
Let's just say it's a
damn.
senior moment.
I don't remember that. And
Yeah.
now, you know why? You know what would help me remember that? If I had any, if I had a book with me and I had people sign my book or something, or if I took pictures. But I don't remember
Right.
none of that.
It was a yellow
Damn.
book. No,
Wow.
but regardless,
Yes, sir.
Jester, as we wind this down,
Yes.
I just want to say, really sincerely, man, as a grown man who I've been talking about you since I was a child, and emulating your signature, and talking about you and your work. And I got to know more of
Now
you
you sound
through
like
this, which
men.
is
Now
really
I'm
special to
sorry.
me.
I'm sorry. You sound like
And for
men. Men
all
was
of
like,
us, really,
yo,
for the
I
whole
remember.
culture.
I remember watching the trains. I remember going on the trains with my dad, and I used to see your name, Jester. Am I really that old? God
Dude,
damn.
no, let's be sincere, because a lot of us, you know, have these people who influence us that we never meet, that are mythological, right? And you were
Right.
one of them. And for you to share your story with us here at the Museum of Graffiti is important, because we're trying to do exactly as you said. You know, let's catalog these stories while we're alive, um,
Right.
and share these moments. You know, it's condensed. I mean, you've had a full life, and you had a lot more to
Yo, we
offer or
here.
explore.
We still
Yeah,
here, yo. We still here. Go ahead.
yeah,
We ain't going
yes.
nowhere.
That's good.
Right.
So listen, on behalf of the museum, I want to, before I give you the last word, I just want to really thank you on behalf of my team here, and also I would say this on behalf of the culture, of of those who know, of those who have been influenced. Thank you. So the floor is yours.
Hey, I appreciate everything everybody does, and I thank you so much for having me on your artist talk, and um I want to get down there to Florida to the museum because I got
Yes.
to check it out. And yo, Cat is my man. He's me and him is cool. You know, I got to speak to Cat, and all I want to say is like all us old cats, all us dinosaurs, keep the we need to keep it alive because stories are being told, false stories are being told, false things are being said. And as long as we're here, as long as I'm here, when I see anything online that's bullshit, I'm gonna fucking correct it. And I don't give a fuck if niggas got a problem with it or if anybody has a problem with it. I'm gonna correct it. Don't say no bullshit and you won't get corrected.
Yeah.
Simple as that. So with that being said,
Well,
thank you for having me. Um, I really appreciate you, and peace.